The iconic lift wasn't supposed to happen. The water wasn't meant to be that cold. The summer of 1963 was actually filmed in October. Dirty Dancing wasn't just a film, it was a cultural revolution that redefined coming-of-age stories and created a dance phenomenon that still echoes through wedding receptions and talent shows decades later. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Join us as we explore the hidden moment that slipped past editors, choreographers, and even the eagle-eyed producers of one of the most rewatched films in American cinema. Before we dive in, tell me your favorite Dirty Dancing quote in the comments below. In 1986, a small film with a modest $5 million budget landed on the desk of Vestron Pictures, a company primarily known for home video distribution. The screenplay, written by Eleanor Bergstein, had already been rejected by multiple major studios, who found the abortion subplot too controversial and the dance sequences too risque for mainstream audiences. But Bergstein, who based the story on her own experiences as a teenager in the Catskills, refused to compromise on these elements. What many don't know is that Dirty Dancing was originally titled I Was a Teenage Mambo Queen. The title changed, but Bergstein's insistence on authenticity remained. She had grown up spending summers at resorts like Grossinger's in the Catskills, where she encountered dance instructors who moonlighted at nearby hotels. Her experiences formed the backbone of what would become Baby's journey. When the film finally got the green light, expectations were modest at best. Vestron Pictures saw it as a low-risk investment that would quickly transition to home video, where they expected to make their real profit. No one, not the studio, not the cast, not even director Emile Ardolino, anticipated the cultural phenomenon it would become. The casting process brought together Jennifer Grey, fresh off her role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Patrick Swayze, who had made a name for himself in The Outsiders and Red Dawn. Their initial screen test revealed something the script alone couldn't capture, a chemistry that crackled with tension, vulnerability, and undeniable heat. Critics were initially dismissive. The New York Times called it a ghost of a movie, while the Washington Post described it as shamelessly manipulative. But audiences saw something the critics missed. On opening weekend, August 21st, 1987, the film earned $6.2 million, nearly recouping its entire budget. Word of mouth spread like wildfire, and by the end of its theatrical run, Dirty Dancing had grossed over $170 million worldwide. But behind the summer romance and perfectly executed choreography lay a production fraught with challenges, conflicts, and one peculiar moment that somehow made it into the final cut. The dance might have been dirty, but the continuity was about to get even messier. Jennifer Grey was not the studio's first choice for France's Baby Houseman. Sarah, Jessica Parker, and Sharon Stone both auditioned, while Billy Zane was initially cast as Johnny Castle before being replaced during rehearsals when it became apparent he lacked the necessary dance skills. Val Kilmer was offered the role, but turned it down. The role of Johnny Castle seemed cursed until Swayze, who had professional dance training thanks to his mother's dance school in Houston, Texas, walked into the audition. What many don't realize is that Grey and Swayze had previously worked together on Red Dawn, 1984, and their relationship had been somewhat tense. Swayze found Grey's spontaneous approach to scenes frustrating, while Grey was intimidated by Swayze's technical precision. This real-life friction ironically mirrored the initial dynamic between Johnny and Baby, lending authenticity to their early scenes together. Kenny Ortega, who would later direct High School Musical, served as choreographer. He faced the monumental task of making Grey, who had minimal dance experience, look convincing next to Swayze, a trained ballet dancer. Grey underwent an intensive 4-week dance boot camp before filming began. Even more challenging, she had to appear progressively more skilled throughout the film while maintaining Baby's initial awkwardness. Jerry Orbach, who played Dr. Jake Houseman, was a Tony Award-winning Broadway star with a powerful singing voice that the film never utilized. Cynthia Rhodes, who portrayed Penny, had been a dancer in Flashdance and had toured with Leo Sayer and the Bee Gees before landing her role. Contract negotiations revealed the financial gulf between the leads. Swayze, with his established name, commanded $200,000 for his role, while Gray received significantly less at $50,000. This disparity wasn't unusual in Hollywood, but reflected the gender pay gap that persisted throughout the industry. The rehearsal process was physically grueling. Swayze, despite his dance background, suffered a recurring knee injury that required draining fluid from his knee almost daily. Gray, meanwhile, was terrified of the famous lift scene in the lake, having previously injured her neck and fearing she would be dropped. That fear was genuine. They only successfully completed the lift once during filming, and that's the take used in the final cut. Behind the scenes, director Emile Ardolino fought constant battles with Vestron executives who wanted to tone down the film's politics, sexuality, and gritty realism. A classically trained director with a background in dance documentation, Ardolino insisted on capturing dance sequences in wide shots with minimal cuts, a decision that would inadvertently preserve one of the film's most noticeable continuity errors. But as production moved forward and the deadline loomed, the pressure to deliver would create the perfect conditions for something unusual to slip through the cracks. Dirty Dancing was primarily filmed in two locations, Lake Lure, North Carolina, and the Mountain Lake Lodge in Pembroke, Virginia, which stood in for the fictional Kellerman's Resort. What many viewers don't realize is that the production faced a significant logistical challenge. Filming began in September 1986 and extended into October, even though the story takes place during the height of summer. The weather in North Carolina was uncooperative, to say the least. Temperatures dipped into the 40s during outdoor scenes, making the famous lake sequence particularly grueling. Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey were literally turning blue between takes, with medical personnel standing by with blankets and hot water. Swayze later recalled in his autobiography the pain of perfection, that his lips were purple and his body was numb during the waterlift scene. The production design team worked overtime to maintain the illusion of summer, painting autumn leaves green and strategically positioning fans to create the impression of warm summer breezes. Cinematographer Jeff Juror developed specific lighting techniques to create the golden summer glow despite the fall chill. Budget constraints affected nearly every aspect of production. The film's $5 million budget was considered minimal even by 1986 standards. This meant fewer takes, rapid set changes, and a compressed 44-day shooting schedule. The iconic staff quarters party scene was filmed in just one night, with the cast and crew working until sunrise to capture all necessary footage. The famous dance studio, where many of Johnny and Baby's practice sessions take place, was actually a multi-purpose room at the Mountain Lake Lodge. It was transformed into different settings throughout filming, sometimes serving as the dining hall in the morning and the dance studio by afternoon. This rapid reconfiguration led to numerous continuity challenges, with props and set pieces occasionally appearing in the wrong scenes. Sound recording presented additional challenges. The wooden floors of the dance studio created excessive noise during dance sequences, requiring much of the footwork to be dubbed in post-production. The famous Hungry Eyes montage contains almost no original production audio. Everything from the footsteps to the fabric rustling was created in the sound studio months after filming concluded. The climactic end-of-season show sequence was particularly challenging. It was shot over 3 grueling days with temperatures in the makeshift stage area reaching over 100 degrees under the lights. Background dancers and extras worked without air conditioning, and several fainted during the extended takes. The sequence required precise timing from all performers, as Ardolino insisted on capturing full dance sequences whenever possible rather than relying on editing to create the illusion of continuous movement. Test screenings revealed another problem. Audiences were confused by the film's period setting. Additional post-production work added more explicit references to the summer of 1963, including enhanced costume details and set dressing that would firmly place viewers in the pre-Vietnam, pre-Beatles America that Bergstein wanted to capture. despite meticulous attention to period details, costume continuity, and dance choreography. Something unusual happened during one pivotal scene, a moment so strange that once noticed, it transforms how you view a key emotional sequence. And still, something slipped through. The scene occurs approximately 1 hour and 9 minutes into the film, during what fans often call the falling in love montage. Johnny and Baby have progressed beyond their initial training, and their practice sessions have evolved from frustrating exercises to fluid, connected movements. The sequence is set to Eric Carmen's Hungry Eyes and shows their relationship deepening through dance. Specifically, we need to focus on the moment when Johnny and Baby are practicing in the dance studio with the large windows and wooden floors. They're working on their hip movements and body connection. Johnny stands behind Baby, his hands on her hips, guiding her movement as they sway together. Baby wears a light pink tank top and white shorts, while Johnny is dressed in his characteristic black tight-fitting pants and a flowing white shirt, partially unbuttoned. The camera starts with a medium shot capturing both dancers from the side, then cuts to a closer shot, focusing on their faces as Johnny leans in close to Baby's ear, instructing her as they move. The lighting is warm, with afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, creating a golden halo effect around the dancers. This is a pivotal moment in the narrative. The physical connection is obviously transcending the professional relationship, and we're watching Baby transform from an awkward beginner to Johnny's partner in every sense. The choreography here is deliberately sensual, with Johnny's hands guiding Baby's hips in the famous figure-8 motion that becomes a signature move in their final dance. What you're supposed to notice is the chemistry between the leads, the improvement in Baby's dancing, and the intimate nature of their connection. The focus is meant to be on their faces, the closeness of their bodies, and the fluid motion they create together. The scene is designed to visually represent their falling in love through the medium of dance. But if you look beyond the central action, if your eyes drift just slightly to the background of this intimate moment, you'll notice something that completely breaks the spell of 1963 Catskills summer romance. If you've ever rewatched this scene with a careful eye, you might have caught it. Behind Johnny and Baby, visible through the studio's windows, is a crew member in distinctly modern clothing, wearing what appears to be a t-shirt and jeans that are unmistakably from the 1980s, not 1963. For approximately 3 seconds, as the camera pans with the dancers, this figure can be seen walking past the window, carrying what looks like modern filming equipment. Now here's where it gets strange. The figure isn't just passing by once. If you watch frame by frame, you'll notice that the same crew member appears to walk past 2 separate windows, despite the timing making this physically impossible. They would have needed to teleport or move at superhuman speed to create this continuity error. The camera movement is fluid, following Johnny and Baby as they sway together, which makes the error even more baffling. The standard practice would be to secure the set perimeter during filming, especially for exterior-facing windows. Someone on set, either the assistant director or the continuity supervisor, would typically ensure that no crew members were visible in the background. What makes this error particularly noteworthy is its placement in one of the most emotionally significant montages in the film. This isn't a throwaway scene or a quick transition. It's the visual representation of Johnny and Baby falling in love, set to one of the film's most recognizable songs. The lighting of the scene inadvertently highlights the error. The late afternoon sun creates a backlighting effect through the windows, which silhouettes the crew member, making them more noticeable against the bright background. Had the scene been filmed at a different time of day, the error might have been less conspicuous. The editing rhythm of this sequence may explain why the error survived post-production. The Hungry Eyes montage consists of rapid cuts between different practice sessions, giving editors and continuity supervisors less time to scrutinize each individual shot. The focus was likely on ensuring dance continuity between cuts rather than examining background elements. Another factor that likely contributed to this oversight was the film's rushed post-production schedule. Vestron Pictures was eager to release the film, allowing only 10 weeks for editing, an extremely tight timeline for a dance-heavy production. editor Peter Honis was primarily focused on crafting the dance sequences to showcase the choreography while maintaining narrative flow, potentially missing background elements in the process. What's particularly ironic about this error is that it occurs in a scene celebrating precision and perfection in dance. Johnny is teaching Baby that every movement, every position matters, all while a crew member accidentally photobombs their pivotal romantic moment. Once you spot this modern intruder in the supposedly 1963 Catskills resort, the illusion of period authenticity momentarily shatters. It's a brief but jarring reminder that the passionate summer romance we're witnessing was actually filmed on a chilly fall day in 1986 with a crew of technicians just out of frame. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. When Dirty Dancing was released on VHS in 1988, the format's lower resolution mercifully obscured many of the film's continuity errors, including our crew member in the window. However, the 1997 10th anniversary DVD release brought this and other mistakes into sharper focus, sparking discussions among fans. Online message boards like the Dirty Dancing Devotees forum became hotbeds of debate. Some fans insisted the figure was actually meant to be another dance instructor at Kellerman's, visible through the window teaching their own class. Others developed elaborate theories that it was intentionally included as an Easter egg by the production team. One particularly creative theory that circulated in the early 2000s suggested the figure was a nod to Eleanor Bergstein herself, with the writer-producer making a cameo as a resort staff member. This theory gained enough traction that Bergstein was asked about it during a 2007 interview with Entertainment Weekly, where she laughingly denied any intentional appearance and confirmed it was indeed a filming error. When the film was remastered for its 20th anniversary in 2007, digital technology offered the opportunity to remove the error. However, Lionsgate, which had acquired the film rights, made the interesting decision to preserve the original footage, mistakes and all. The accompanying director's commentary acknowledged the crew member sighting as part of the authentic charm of a film made on a tight budget. The 30th anniversary 4K restoration in 2017 finally addressed some of the film's most obvious continuity errors, including digitally removing the crew member from the window. However, this decision was met with surprising backlash from purists who felt the corrections diminished the film's original character. A petition titled "Keep Dirty Dancing Dirty" garnered over 5,000 signatures from fans who wanted the film preserved in its imperfect original state. Streaming platforms now offer different versions. Netflix streams the corrected version, while some digital purchases on platforms like iTunes include the option to watch the original theatrical version, with errors intact, positioning them as cherished artifacts rather than mistakes. Patrick Swayze referenced the window error in his 2009 autobiography, noting with amusement that Our Perfect Dance had an imperfect backdrop. Jennifer Grey, during a 30th anniversary cast reunion on ABC in 2017, joked that she was too lost in Patrick's eyes to notice someone walking outside the window. But here's where it gets particularly interesting. This wasn't an isolated incident. Dirty Dancing contains a surprising number of continuity errors and anachronisms that have become part of its enduring legacy. The crew member in the window isn't the only oversight that made it into the final cut. When Baby carries the watermelon into the staff quarters party, the watermelon disappears and reappears between shots. During Johnny and Baby's first dance lesson, her hair switches from behind her shoulders to in front of them multiple times within the same conversation. The weather changes dramatically during the log balancing scene from sunny to overcast between cuts. In the finale performance, Baby's dress magically dries seconds after being lifted from the water. A modern fire exit sign is clearly visible in the corner of the staff quarters during the Dirty Dancing scenes. During the Love is Strange crawling scene, a crew member's hand can briefly be seen adjusting a prop. The resort sign switches between Kellerman's and Kellerman throughout the film. Johnny's car changes from a 1957 Chevy to a slightly different model when they leave the resort. Baby's shoes during the final dance sequence change from character shoes to dance sneakers and back again. The positions of the backup dancers during Time of My Life rearrange impossibly between cuts, with dancers teleporting across the stage. Yet somehow, these imperfections became part of the charm. Despite its technical flaws, Dirty Dancing resonated with audiences on a profound level that transcended continuity errors and anachronisms. The film worked because it was never really about perfection, it was about authenticity. The chemistry between Gray and Swayze wasn't manufactured in an editing room. It was raw, sometimes uncomfortable, and utterly genuine. Their behind the scenes tensions created an on screen dynamic that couldn't be choreographed. When Johnny looks at Baby with frustration during their early practice sessions, we're seeing echoes of Swayze's real reactions to working with Gray. Eleanor Bergstein's semi-autobiographical screenplay tackled subjects that mainstream films of the 1980s typically avoided: class differences, illegal abortion, female sexuality, and a young woman's awakening to social injustice. These elements gave Dirty Dancing a depth that elevated it beyond a simple dance romance. The film's restricted budget and tight filming schedule actually contributed to its authenticity. Without the luxury of endless retakes, performances had an urgency and spontaneity rarely found in more polished productions. The famous lift in the lake had to work on the first try. There was no time or budget for alternatives. That pressure translated into a visceral tension that audiences could feel. Even the musical choices reflected a commitment to emotional truth over period accuracy. While the film is set in 1963, many of the songs, particularly Hungry Eyes and I've Had the Time of My Life, were contemporary 1980s productions. Rather than strict historical fidelity, the soundtrack prioritized emotional resonance, creating a timeless quality that continues to connect with new generations. The dancing itself balanced technical excellence with believable character development. Baby's progression from awkward beginner to confident partner wasn't just choreography, it was storytelling. Her body language evolves throughout the film, showing her character's growth more eloquently than dialogue ever could. Perhaps most importantly, Dirty Dancing offered something rarely seen in mainstream cinema: a female, coming-of-age story told from a distinctly female perspective. Baby's journey wasn't about becoming beautiful or finding a man. It was about discovering her own voice, confronting her father's expectations, and standing up for her beliefs and desires. The film's imperfections, whether continuity errors or the occasionally on-the-nose dialogue, only enhanced its authenticity. In a story about breaking free from artificial constraints and finding genuine connection, a bit of messiness felt appropriate. After all, as Johnny tells Baby, the steps aren't enough. You have to feel the music. And audiences did feel it, errors and all. Dirty Dancing transcended its humble origins to become one of the most successful independent films of all time. Its box office take of $170 million worldwide against a $5 million budget represented a 3,400% return on investment. The home video release broke records, selling over 10 million copies, an unprecedented number for the time. The film's cultural impact extended far beyond box office receipts. The soundtrack album sold over 32 million copies worldwide and remained on the Billboard charts for over 18 months. I've Had the Time of My Life won both an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song, as well as a Grammy for Best Pop Performance by a Duo. Dirty Dancing launched a multi-platform franchise that included a 1988 concert tour, a short-lived 1988 TV series, a 2004 stage musical that has played in multiple countries, and a 2017 television remake. The original film returned to theaters for special anniversary screenings in 2007, 2017, and 2022, each time introducing the story to new generations. The film's errors, including our crew member in the window, became part of its mythology. Fan websites catalog and celebrate these mistakes rather than criticize them. In a 2017 Twitter poll by Entertainment Weekly asking fans whether the errors should be digitally removed for future releases, 83% voted to keep the film in its original imperfect state. Perhaps the ultimate testament to Dirty Dancing's legacy is how it continues to resonate with audiences who weren't even born when it was released. A 2022 TikTok trend had teenagers recreating the famous lift, introducing the film to Generation Z. The errors, the outdated fashion, and even the occasionally stilted dialogue haven't diminished its emotional impact. As Johnny Castle might say, it's not about perfection, it's about feeling. Despite its cultural ubiquity, several persistent myths about Dirty Dancing continue to circulate. Contrary to popular belief, the lake scene was not filmed in Lake Lure, but in Mountain Lake in Virginia, which has since experienced a natural phenomenon causing it to drain periodically. The water level at the time of the famous lift scene was only about 4 feet deep, not the seemingly bottomless lake it appears to be on screen. Another common misconception is that Jennifer Grey performed all of her own dancing. While she did perform the majority of the choreography, a professional dancer named Doriana Sanchez served as her double for some of the more complex turns and spins in the final performance scene. Swayze, however, did perform all of his own dancing, refusing a double despite his knee injury. Perhaps the most pervasive myth involves the famous line, "Nobody puts baby in a corner." Many believe this was improvised by Swayze, but it was actually written by screenwriter Eleanor Bergstein. Interestingly, both Swayze and director Emile Ardolino initially fought to have the line removed, finding it too cheesy. Bergstein insisted it remain, correctly predicting it would become the film's most quotable moment. Nobody puts baby in a corner, and nobody puts a perfect polish on the beautiful, messy reality of filmmaking. That glimpse of a crew member through the window reminds us that behind every movie, Magic Moment is a team of dedicated professionals just out of frame, creating illusions that continue to captivate us decades later. The next time you watch Johnny and Baby fall in love during that practice session, look past them to the window. That accidental cameo connects us to the real world of 1986, to the rushed production, to the cold October day when summer was created through sheer movie magic. It's a reminder that imperfection doesn't diminish greatness. Sometimes it defines it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden details of Dirty Dancing, hit subscribe for more investigations into the fascinating mistakes that make our favorite films even more interesting. And tell us in the comments, what other classic movie moments deserve a closer look? Because when it comes to cinema, the most revealing moments are sometimes hiding in plain sight.